The story I'm about to share with you right now is someone's real story. A story of abuse, a story of survival, and of recovery. Okay, here we go. I had a conversation with a lady a while ago by the name Anita. She grew up in Chicago with her brother and her parents in what seemed to be a normal, regular household. But when she was about 9 years old, her father started molesting her. He started sexually assaulting her. It was a very strange and painful experience for the little girl. So she had to tell someone. And so she went ahead and told her mom what happened. But her mother did not do anything about it. In fact, her mother did not believe her. So she lived in that hell, emotionally and physically ravaged by her father, who was supposed to be her protector. And she was unable to confide in her mother. So she lived in that toxic environment until she was about 14 years old, the same year that the father passed away. And so because of her experience, she lost herself as a person. She lost her worth, her self-worth. She was internally dysregulated. But here is where it begins to get interesting. She almost immediately started looking for a replacement for her father. But when a guy tries to take care of her, when a guy tries to respect her, she rejects him. She would break up with him. She was only attracted to men that would abuse her, men that would use her and disrespect her, because the experience of abuse felt like home to her. That was what she understood. And that cycle continued until she finally married a man that was abusive, a man that was disrespectful. In fact, she said there were times when he would bring in another woman to the house while she was there in the house. Not like they're having a threesome, just the man, the husband, and the strange lady in the house. And she still did not leave him. But here is what happened. They had 2 kids together, 2 children, a boy and a girl. When the girl was just about 10 years old, she caught the husband sexually messing with their daughter. And that was where she drew the line. That singular event of the husband molesting the daughter changed her life. She found the courage to leave him. She had custody of the children. She joined a church group that helped her begin to see value in her own self as a human being. She was able to put her kids through school, and she never again entertained disrespect from another man. And she finally got married to a man that loves her and respects her. There are 2 things that I want to point out in Anita's story. The first one is a question that I'm going to try to answer. Why do people endure abuse? Why would a woman who have been repeatedly abused by a man in a relationship remain in that relationship? I've had the privilege to have conversation about this subject with people who have experienced abuse. There are several reasons that you would deem justifiable, and I'm going to go through some instances with you. There are cases where having children in the equation makes the situation very complicated, so that a woman feels like, I don't know what I'm going to do, or I don't know what is going to happen to my children if I leave this relationship. The fear of losing custody of the children, or maybe an attempt to leave, might trigger extreme violence or stalking, or maybe a threat to the children or to the family. Another instance would be financial dependence. This is when the man controls 100% of the money. He provides the shelter, he provides transportation, he provides the food, such that the woman would have to think twice before she makes any decision. How do I feed myself? How do I feed the children? How do I sleep? Where do I sleep tonight? How do I move around? How do I sustain myself and the children if I leave this relationship? What about women that are stuck in the cycle of abuse? And here's what I mean by a cycle of abuse. Tension builds up in the relationship. The woman gets abused. The man apologizes. He becomes affectionate. He buys flowers. He buys gifts. And he promises never to do it again. And there's peace for some time until tension builds again and the cycle just continues. But here is what you need to know. Over 75% of women in abusive relationships saw that abuse or experienced that abuse at the very beginning of the relationship, but they stayed in the relationship anyways. When you look at the mirror and reject yourself, when you're not proud of what you see, when you don't truly understand the worth of the person looking back at you in the mirror, there's a greater tendency for you to endure abuse. Let me give you an example. The way I would treat a penny or a dime is completely different from how I'm going to treat a $100 bill. I can intentionally forget the penny in the grocery checkout, but I can't do that with a $100 bill. I keep my $100 bills neatly in my wallet. The value that you place on anything determines how you treat it and how you let other people treat it. It is true for a penny and a $100 note. It is also true for yourself as a human being. This is true for when you accept abuse in the beginning of a relationship. It is also true when there's emotional investment and when there's children in that relationship. Because what happens when you endure abuse is the erosion of self-worth. And that is when a woman starts to believe that she deserves the abuse, that she's unlovable, and that no one would accept her. So the key point here is that you need to connect with your true worth as a person. Anita's journey of self-discovery only started when the husband started abusing her child. You don't need to wait until something crazy happens before you start thinking about change. The second thing that you have to understand about this story is that change is possible. Change is very difficult. There's no doubt about that, but it is very possible. And change typically happens two ways. When the pain of staying the same exceeds the fear of the unknown. That is when the pain of your current situation is so much, is so great, so that you don't have any other option but to change. Change can also happen when an internal switch just turns on, like in the case of Anita in the story. When you remain in a toxic relationship for too long, you not only experience an erosion of self-worth, you enter a phase of learned helplessness, and you start feeling like change is impossible. And one thing you don't want to do is to give up on the possibility of change, especially when it's a progressive, positive change. The truth is that change requires courage. It requires self-awareness, and sometimes it requires support from other people. And that means reaching out to friends, reaching out to family, or seeking professional support or professional resources. And this may mean taking small steps, one day at a time. But every step that you take, reclaiming your life, every step that you take towards reclaiming your life, no matter how small, chips away from the fear that has kept you trapped, that has held you back all the while. And here is the most important thing that you need to remember. Your worth as a human being is not diminished by someone else's action or words. Never forget that. The journey to recognizing your own value may be difficult and it may sometimes feel slow, but it is always possible. Just like Anita, you can find the strength to break that cycle, to reconnect with your sense of self, and to create a life that reflects your true worth as a human being. This podcast is dedicated to helping adults break free from self-doubt and build unbreakable self-esteem. So thank you for watching. Your support is crucial for two reasons. First, low self-esteem affects more people than we realize, and possibly someone that you love. And secondly, on social media, I'm an underdog. That means your support truly matters. And so thank you for subscribing, and most importantly, thank you for watching. It means the world to me. My name is Solomon Asine, and this is Mindset Makeover. I'll see you in the next episode.